Welcome to All Wheel Driven, a podcast by Audi Club North America, where we explore all things Audi and the incredible people who bring it to life. All Wheel Driven is presented by XPEL, the official paint protection film of Audi Club North America. Today, we're chatting with automotive journalist Alanis King. She's a content creator and reviewer with a successful YouTube channel, co-author of a book on the Haas Formula One team called Racing with Rich Energy, and former editor-at-large at Motor One. Alanis also has held editorial and content roles at Jalopnik, Business Insider, and Cars and Bids. We chat about Audi's entry into Formula One, the potential return of the iconic Audi R8, the hybrid evolution of the supercar segment, and much more. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Let's get started. Yeah, Alanis King, welcome to All Wheel Driven. So this is our new podcast from Audi Club North America, and just excited to get people in the mix and kind of share their stories about all things cars, Audi adjacent, and so forth. So
Awesome.
excited to have you here. It's been about like a year now since you and I were in the Cars and Bids tent. So a lot has happened since then, but good to catch up again. And I think when I think of your content in general, I miss the days of Donut Racing show, as I know you do. So I think of you as like my go-to motorsports journalist. So I'm dying to talk to you about Audi F1 because you know like so much about F1 and everything like NASCAR, IndyCar, the whole mix, right? So us being Audi Club, of course, we're excited for next year, 2026. Big regulation changes coming. Audi taking over for Sauber, Cadillac also joining, among other things that are forthcoming. But yeah, we just love to hear about your take on Audi and like what you think the entrance means for the sport, what you predict how it will all take shape with their drivers and their new leadership.
Heck yeah. I'm so excited to talk about it. I love F1.
So what do you think about like their competitiveness going into next season? What are your thoughts? What are your expectations? Just knowing what we know now.
I think it's hard right now because we're about to go through a major regulation change. There are going to be all new regulations for 2026. And if you look at current team and manufacturer performance, it's just hard to tell whether that will carry over or whether there will be a big shakeup. And when you look at Sauber's performance right now, which Audi is going into the Sauber camp, when you look at their performance right now and in this current regulation setting, they haven't done super well in this set of regulations, but that can change completely when you have an overhaul of rules. And it's very hard to tell. I think it would be much easier to make predictions if Audi were entering 1 year into a new set of regulations, right? Because you would have an idea of where that team is at and what they're going to do. But with these new regulations and with all the stuff Audi is developing for it, I just have no idea. Maybe they'll be great. Maybe they'll be okay. It's very hard to tell.
Yeah, no, I agree. It feels like, especially in the context of Sauber and like Stake F1 this year, it almost just feels like it's a placeholder year, almost like it's like yeah, like they have their driver set with Hulkenberg and the rookie, but like it almost feels like it's kind of out the door because like whatever they perform this year is going to totally be changed next year, and it's more just about the personnel, like getting everything set up, right?
Yeah, and I've definitely felt like that for a couple of years about Sauber because it's been obvious that these rules have just not been kind to the team. And you see that a lot. I mean, if you look at 2018, the Haas Formula One team, they performed really well. They had their best ever season. They finished like fifth in the team standings. And then their car was terrible in 2019, right?
Mm.
It's just every year and every major rules update, you just have these big swings. And maybe those swings are for the better, they're for the worse. You just don't know. I think, yeah, this is very much a placeholder year. It's like, come on over, we're gonna hire you. We're probably not gonna do super well, but we'll have you for next year. Yay.
Yeah, right. Just like getting them acclimated to the team and the engineers and everything, so that they can
Yes.
hopefully hit the ground running next year.
Yes, that's how I look at it too.
It's interesting to see also Binotto's coming back, right? He's not the team principal, but he's like in the leadership team, like chief
Mm-hmm.
operating strategist or something. So that'll be interesting, right? I mean, we last saw him in the I guess what the Ferrari clown meme years of like Ferrari's pit strategy and so forth. So
Sometimes you see him running around in uniform and you're like, you're not wearing red. That's weird. Why
yeah,
aren't you
right,
wearing
yeah,
red? What's
yeah. That's
what's
it's
going
just
on
banged
here?
into our minds.
Yeah, and I like sometimes I see him in the paddock and I'm like, you're in the wrong color. What are you doing?
Is he on the Sauber team technically now, or does he?
I've seen him in the paddock. I've seen him in the paddock like a couple of times. I mean, let me look it up, but yeah, I've seen him in the paddock a couple of times.
What are your thoughts on the driver talent?
So, yeah, I think Nico Hulkenberg was probably a really good choice for this lineup because Nico Hulkenberg is known to be a good qualifier, even in just an okay to not so good car. He's known to be a very good qualifier. And that can be really important in Formula One, especially if your car just like isn't up to par. Because if you qualify well, you get spread out after that first corner, and sometimes you can
Mhm.
hold position. So, with Nico Hulkenberg being a good qualifier, that's a really good choice. Now, I have not seen a lot from Bortoleto because I don't follow the up and coming Formula ranks as closely as I follow something like the up and coming NASCAR ranks. I just kind of look at people once they're in Formula One because at
Mhm.
some point you only have so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
I cannot watch all of the up and coming NASCAR ranks and also Formula 2 and 3 and 4 and everything like that. So I usually start looking at people once they're in F1. But all of the drivers have like tons of praise for him. Fernando Alonso is like, this is the dude. Him, look at him. So if Fernando Alonso is saying it, I'm probably going to listen to him. And I think if you can put together a decent car and you have this mix, it's a good mix because Nico Hulkenberg has been around for a long time. He can give you feedback, he can qualify well. And then you have this new prodigy who even Fernando Alonso is like, hey, pay attention to him. So I think it's a pretty good combo. It just depends on what do they come out of the gate with.
Yeah. And do you think like I'm not even up to speed exactly on all to your point, like in the way that you can't keep up with all the upcoming talent, like I can't keep up with all the up and coming reg changes. Like I try to watch the recaps and stuff sometimes, but it just gets all convoluted. Like what are the high level changes that we're going to be facing next year across the whole grid?
Yeah, so for 2026, the cars are going to be lighter. They're also redesigning the power unit. So we're still going to have that hybrid power unit, but there's going to be more electric power. And then the overtaking system, they're going to add they have talked about, and I have seen on the Formula One website, adding this burst of battery power in overtaking situations. And then, of course, when we're switching to the new regulations, we have all of these new power unit manufacturers coming in. So, like, those are the high level changes, lighter, redesigned power unit, stuff like that. And that can really trip people up or can be really beneficial. It just depends.
Right. Yeah, and that's where people in the team leadership usually take some big swings, right? Like Mercedes in the last reg change where I think it was like they dropped like the side pod arrow to arrow and engine air intake design that everyone else was leaning on, and it definitely didn't pay off at first, right? And they had to kind of backpedal a lot in terms of their car development. So
Yep, exactly. You see a lot of stuff like that until teams kind of figure it out or they settle into whatever place they're going to get in the constructor standings.
right, right. And like knowing Audi, I mean, my initial reaction to all this is like, Audi doesn't mess around in motorsports, generally speaking, right? Like they were in WEC years ago with Le Mans and everything. It was like the Red Bull years in a sense with Formula One. Like they were just dominating, right? And you showed up to watch Le Mans, see how everyone else did that was behind Audi or in the other classes, right? Until they eventually exited after 2016. But they've had some successes in Formula E, the Dakar Series, and also DTM for many years, of course. Like, do you think that's going to ring true with F1? Like they're there to truly be more than just a midfield team and take the fight to the McLaren, the Red Bull, the Mercedes.
So I think it's super hard to tell, and I'm so sorry if you hear my mic shaking. My cat is using my mic to scratch her face. And now she's putting her tail on my mic. I think it's extremely hard to tell. Yeah, Audi is super competitive in a lot of different motorsports, but Formula One is even more so now than it was 10 years ago. Formula One is always the place. I'm so sorry, my
Hi,
cat.
Porsche, right?
This is Portia.
Hello, Porsche.
Um, so even more so now with so many eyes on it and with just the increase in viewership from Drive to Survive and just all of these people and all of this money flowing into Formula One, there is a big pressure to do super well. And all of these teams feel that and all of the manufacturers feel that. So yes, Audi is super successful in a lot of motorsports, but so are a lot of automakers and manufacturers and teams. And they come to Formula One and sometimes they struggle really hard. Sometimes they do really well. It's
Mhm.
just one of those things where you have no idea until you see them on track. And even sometimes you don't even have an idea once you see them on track because testing is sometimes just not a good indicator of what the year is going to be like. And it's interesting because take Ferrari or Red Bull or anybody, They have years of being up and years of being really, 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 really down. And it's just super interesting to see those swings. Even if you are a major name and a major brand and a major manufacturer, you're going to have ups and downs in Formula One. And we'll see whether it starts on an up or starts on a down. It's just, you never know.
Yeah. And they have, I mean, zero history, right? Like in terms of like powertrain involvement with Formula One or anything, right? This is a true first for them, or do they have any kind of background there?
Well, so I mean, I think regardless of history, because this is a hybrid power unit and because we're using so much electric power, it's kind of just new for a lot of manufacturers.
Right.
And obviously, if you've been in Formula One for the past like 10 years, right, in the era of hybrids since 2014, you have some experience there, but we're like really upping the electric power. So, I mean, no matter what your experience is, unless you have experience in the hybrid era, it's kind of just all
It's like
new.
irrelevant. Yeah. What do you see like just powertrain development going forward? There's a lot of murmurs in the recent weeks, I think, about like V10 resurgence and things of that nature. Like what is going on there? Are you up to speed on all that?
So here's the thing. I don't imagine seeing Formula 1 going up on cylinders. I
Yeah,
really
I
really
don't
don't
either.
see that happening because you could say, well, in America, we're probably going to have bigger engines and looser fuel economy regulations for however many years, but Formula 1 is a global sport, right? And regardless of what's happening in America, around the world, fuel economy regulations and just cylinders and engine sizes and everything like that are shrinking. So it's like if these manufacturers are making engines that are smaller and have fewer cylinders, you're not just going to go the opposite direction for racing most of the time unless you lean all the way in on vintage racing, right? Because it just doesn't make a lot of sense to say, oh, we race V12s on track, but we're only going to sell you a four cylinder. It's
Right.
just, it's just not super connected to the road cars. And I do think, especially in Formula One is a huge marketing platform. You do want to be able to say, yeah, we use this hybrid technology on the road and stuff like that. You don't want technology that could be seen as antiquated in
Mhm.
your racing cars because it's a marketing platform ultimately.
Yeah, that's a good point. I thought about that recently actually because my mom recently purchased a new Mercedes and they all have, the mild hybrid more or less, right? Or across all brands. And it's like, oh, like it's the 2-liter four-cylinder with eco or with EQ boost is what Mercedes calls it,
Mhm.
right? And it's like looking back, like that was effectively an F1 generated technology that eventually made its way to AMGs and now it's all the way down to like the more pedestrian cars, right? So
Continuously variable transmissions were an F1 technology,
yeah,
Williams
yeah,
F1.
right. Lots of
And
different
now
air.
everybody hates CVTs.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets so democratized that they're like, "What is this garbage?" And it's like, "Well, it's technically
Mhm.
motorsports technology, but okay."
Technically, Williams was like, "Look at this magic. Look at this magic we came up with." And then
Yeah,
Formula 1 was like, "Too magic. Mm-mm, can't do it. Nope, nope." And now everybody hates them.
right, right. Yeah, and it's interesting too on like the top end of the market with like hypercars and such. Now we're seeing like it almost seems like brands are doubling down with that. Like, the racing technology, albeit in smaller cylinder count, is now being pretty much parallel path with like, the Ferrari F80 and the AMG One, right? And using basically like quote unquote F1 for the road, as cliche as that may be. Like they're trying to replicate that technology. Well, in Ferrari, it wasn't F1 necessarily, but came from the Ma racer, the 499, and baked in some other things from F1 too. So I wonder if, the same might happen with more brands. I mean, we already have the RB17, right, from Red Bull,
Mhm.
their first venture into an actual, F1 track car
Mhm.
experiment. Do you think Audi or Volkswagen Group in general might explore similar opportunities there?
I mean, I do think it's very possible because the Volkswagen Group is so big, and the Volkswagen Group also includes a lot of supercar and hypercar makers, right?
Mm.
It's totally possible, and it just really depends on, is there demand there? There doesn't have to be that much demand because you're not selling that many, but is there enough demand to justify making it? And I do think it's totally possible. And I do think with all of the connections under the Volkswagen Group, you could totally make that happen. It just depends. Does it serve a good marketing purpose? Can you sell 100, 200, however many you're going to sell of them? Can you sell them? And is it worth the R&D to put into that? I saw the Mercedes AMG One for the first time in October. I went to an event at 10 Tenths Motor Club. It's a new racetrack that's actually opening to the public for the first time in a couple of weeks. And Rick Hendrick of Hendrick Motorsports has a Mercedes AMG 1, and they had it on display there. And I was like, no way. I haven't seen one of these in person. And obviously, like, I've seen photos of it for years, right? And I've
Hmm.
never seen one in person. And it was very cool to see in person. But again, I hadn't seen one in person until like 6 or 7 months ago. So is it just an enthusiast marketing thing? Is it an actual halo car? And I do think brands benefit from halo cars that they advertise and they show all the time and people can see. And so, is it worth it to make a super small sample size F1 car for the road? In some ways, yeah. In other ways, not so much. And it just depends on, does your budget department approve it?
Right. Yeah, that's been an interesting, like your point about what market actually cares the most about these things, even in a highly limited production scenario. Because like Ferrari's F80 has been seen with some controversy because it's like it almost feels like they're leaning like too much into the motorsports derived powertrain technology in ultimately a lineage that is supposed to be like their pinnacle enthusiast collector driven model segment. And it almost feels like those things are diverging in a way, right? Where it's like the buyer of the LaFerrari, the F50, and the successor to those types of cars is there's overlap, but maybe it's a different buyer than like the AMG one buyer or the Valkyrie buyer or whatever, right? Like because that's most of those are ultimately track only or some are road legal, which is insane, like the Valkyrie. But it's yeah, it's like it just gets really niche at that point, and you have like I feel like less people, people can like motorsports, but that doesn't necessarily mean they want the motorsports tech or engine if it's V6 4-cylinder hybridized diesel hybrid whatever in their collector hypercar, right?
You also have to consider the engine life, and the entire powertrain life. When you have those F1 cars for the road, they come with
Yeah.
F1 power
They,
unit lives. And
yeah.
that means you're not going to get a ton of mileage out of them. Right.
Right.
And so, yeah, most of the people who buy these cars are not going to drive them past that lifetime. But I feel like, oh, it was some really low number when the Mercedes AMG 1 came out, where you would have to just get a full new engine
Yeah.
after however many thousand miles. And it was like a really low number. And I remember seeing that and going, wow, to be expected. But also, you have to consider that's a headline. That's a headline. This engine does not make it that far. And you
Yeah.
don't want that negative press. It's a very interesting line to walk. And also, yeah, you have to consider, like you said, your audience. Is your collector car audience going to be the same as your motorsport collector car audience? How do you differentiate these cars? It's all marketing, but at the same time, you have to consider the positives and negatives of every little bit of it.
Yeah, for sure. That it seems like a good segue to our next topic, which I've been thinking about on the topic of Halo cars, right? Because I feel like uh, by both sales numbers and just general, like to your point, the marketing, the brand image, I feel like the Audi R8 is like the best Halo car of our time, right? Like they've sold close to 50,000 of them over the near 20-year lifespan. They kind of extend beyond car enthusiasts, right? Like there's a lot of people out there that I meet that know what an Audi R8 is just because it was like, 15, 17 years ago, it was like, that's an Audi, right? Like that was the breakthrough moment that everyone
Yeah.
remembers. Non-car people don't really know what an SLR McLaren is, right? Or like other Halo cars from that period. So it's got me thinking about, there's this recent suggestion that the R8 is going to be returning and potentially deploy some of the plug-in hybrid tech, high revving V8 we now see in the Temerario. Like, what do you think about that? Do you think it's bound to happen that the R8 will return, or do you think it's more of a gamble these days?
I think the R8 could have a lot of success returning as a hybrid. I think it is very hard now to stand out as an electric supercar. And it is very hard to have a halo car right now that is fully electric because of the fact that with electric cars, even though they're fast and they're great and they have a lot of wonderful tech, it is very hard to make an electric halo car that people go, wow, that's something. Because, okay, it has 1,000 horsepower, whatever. Okay, it has 2,000 horsepower, whatever. They're all really fast. They all have instant torque. They're all technology forward. It's hard to stand out, right? Whereas when you combine electric power with a traditional gas engine, you can kind of capture that old mystique that you get from actual hardcore halo supercars. And I think something like the Lamborghini Revuelto really does that. I haven't driven the Temerario. I don't think there's been an opportunity to drive it yet, but the Revuelto really captures the beauty of old school supercars with some hybrid technology, because you can start it in fully electric mode. You can go about 5 miles in fully electric mode when you have a full charge. And then when you get out of the neighborhood, if it's like 6 o'clock in the morning, you can cold start it, and you cold start the V12 and it's nuts, right? And you get all of the joy and the feelings and the emotion of that engine and that car, while also benefiting from a little bit of hybrid technology. And I think that's the way to do it, because at the end of the day, most fully electric supercars that you're going to make are just, it's going to be really hard to hit that level of halo car that the normal person looks at and goes, that's so cool. Because again, it's democratizing technology. It's just like CVTs used to be a Formula One technology, and now people are like, ugh.
Yeah.
Electric cars are democratized, and whether you have 500 horsepower or 2,000, it's still going to be fast.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're definitely seeing that shift in market reaction a bit with, Lotus Evija and Rimacs and things of that nature are struggling a bit on the sales front. I personally think, I know you drove the Revuelto not too long ago. Like, I think Lamborghini lately has been hitting the mark in that sweet spot, to your point, of like, they've got the hybridized Revuelto, Temerario, even the Urus SE that's plug-in hybrid. Like, they are
Mhm.
kind of striking that balance of, how do you maintain the excitement of like the supercar sector and brand image and desirability without getting too much like, dinosaur versus too quick and deep into the EV pond, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the Revuelto really, really hits that balance super well. It is amazing to drive. Everyone stares at you. You're making a bunch of noise, but you can also cut off the noise, right? It's amazing on the racetrack. It's just, it's a very, very good car, and it brings all of those emotions that we're used to getting from supercars. And it also makes them hybrid. And you kind of, I think so often hybrid can be a difficult word for people, because for 25 years or so since the Prius, hybrid has been looked at like, oh, you're boring. I mean, even when the Grand Tour launched from the original Top Gear trio, a lot of the marketing was making fun of Priuses. And it's like, all right, come on. Hybrids can be cool if you embrace them. And for so long, we have looked at hybrids as boring and a necessity and something you get when you really want to compromise. And I think we're now in an era where hybrids can be the cool thing.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
the Revuelto is cool.
Yeah, fully agreed. I mean, it's basically hitting the spot again of like what the holy trinity kind of opened the performance world up to 10 or so years back, right? Of what the P1 and the 918 and those cars were capable of by being hybridized, even without necessarily plug-in technology and with very minimal electric ranges. Feels like some of the brands are kind of hitting their stride in that sense now, and that's probably
Yes.
where it makes the most sense for something like the R8 to come back, because the R8's got the lineage of not only being the Halo car, but like the V10, right? Like the gentleman's Lamborghini, right?
Yeah, and I do think I talk about this a lot, but I went to Torrance, I think in September, and I went to Honda's facility in Torrance, and they have they have like all of these Acura NSXs that they haven't fully retired, but they're also not like actively loaning out. And so you can just, we went there, and I was with one of my friends at Honda, and he was like, "You want to take the NSX out to get coffee?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so we took an orange second generation NSX out, and I drove that car when it was new, like 2017 or something like that. And I remember going, "Oh my gosh, this car rips! This car rocks!" But even still, in that era, we were in the hybrid. We were in
Yeah.
that time. And so when it came out, and it was the second generation NSX, the original one was gas powered, it had the manual, everything like that. Now we have this hybrid NSX, and a lot of people overlooked it. And that car was amazing. Even that car was just slightly ahead of the modern trend of hybrids being kind of cool.
Mhm.
And that's because it wasn't the hardcore like P1. It wasn't those. It was a normal supercar that was a hybrid. And a lot of people overlooked it because it's not as cool as the original. No, it was really, 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 really cool. And a lot of us just missed that train.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I drove one of those at like a brief track rental event years ago. Must have been also like 2016 or something when it was relatively new. And yeah, I loved it as well. I mean,
Yeah.
probably maybe other hybrid hypercars I would have chosen over it, but still definitely ahead of that curve.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder now if like, everyone lusts after the analog experience in like the mid 2000s and earlier. I wonder if, will this like interrupt that a lot in terms of like these hybridized cars will as good as these hybridized supercars, as good as they can be and as high performing as they can be with like the best of all worlds, like will there be a time like I don't know, decade or two down the road where like some of these cars like the NSX you're mentioning or even some of these newer Lamborghinis are seen as like the new analog, quote unquote, if that makes sense? Like because they're
Yeah.
not going all in to like EV propulsion that's very much like democratized and kind of flat sometimes. So, I wonder how history will look on them.
I do think it could go either way. I think the nostalgia can be there, but it also depends on how have these manufacturers retrofitted the electric technology. And this is something that I ask about when I go on drive events. I go, "Hey, what is your plan over the next 10 to 20 years to update this battery and update
Hmm.
this electric unit?" Because we are in an era where electric technology is evolving so quickly that yes, the Revuelto is awesome right now. I love it. But in 10 years, that battery is probably going to be a dinosaur. Are you going to update something and retrofit it to the Revuelto for people who bought it? And so a lot of manufacturers aren't really talking about that right now because everything is so up in the air with
Hmm.
automotive regulations. And so a lot of automakers aren't talking about it. But I do think it is very interesting. And I think that will be very make or break. Will they retrofit new technology to these hybrids? And if they do, I think it would be amazing. If they don't, a lot of people could potentially go,
Hmm.
maybe not.
Yeah, that's the big thing I wonder about too, with just longevity, right? I mean, we've already seen issues or at least frustrations with that on something as crazy as the LaFerrari, right? In terms of like its battery and hybrid system longevity, and it makes you wonder like everything is so software driven, even before you even get to the physical battery infrastructure. Like, how will that age? And yeah, like at the end of the day, like people want to probably keep a lot of these different cars in their collection long term, pass them down. Like these are cars that are gonna outlive us, right? So it's like if that's the intent in the sector, like are they just going to be bricks that like someone's going to put in their garage to look at if the hybrid tech just reaches like a flat line, like when Apple says, "Hey, we're no longer giving iOS updates to iPhone 10 or something," right? Like is
Yeah.
that where it's going to go?
Well, there's also a big learning curve with these vehicles because when you think about it, so much, you see so much online if you're in the car YouTube space and you watch YouTubers rebuild old cars or do new stuff to old cars. They can do that because they have an understanding of gas car technology, right? Like they have a basic understanding of it and they can learn new things about that specific car and they can figure out how to work on that car. And I mean, you see it on YouTube. You see people have Ferrari 360s and stuff like that, and they try to work on them themselves. Something that I've been watching lately is Matt Armstrong on YouTube. He bought a wrecked Revuelto, like a really, really trashed Revuelto, and he's working on it. And it's a big learning curve to be working with all of this hybrid technology and also trying to read the codes that this car is throwing.
Hmm.
Like I watched a video the other day where he had to subscribe to a system to be able to read the codes that the car was throwing. And it's
Hmm.
like $200 a year or something like that. And I'm just looking at this like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on here, right? There are a lot of things locking you out of working on this car because most people who are going to be buying this car right now, they're not going to work on it themselves. But in 20 years, it might be kind of hard to buy one at a big discount and work on it because it is a much steeper learning curve and there's just a lot more that you're working with.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, I hear that a lot too from dealers, right? Where it's like the techs themselves that are already master techs, experienced with a
Mhm.
brand or a set of brands for many years, have a big learning curve just to get involved in the new cars, even non EVs.
Mhm.
Certain things that they're throwing out, diagnostics for, they have to like be in direct contact with Germany about, because it's
Mhm.
like, hey, this is a 24, 23. We haven't even seen this yet. We have no training on this. Like, what is this car telling us?
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
think, yeah, that'll be interesting to watch for, I mean, especially the collector vehicles, but even just as some of the modern, more passenger vehicles age. Like, we've had mild hybrid tech in a lot of different luxury cars for the last 5 years now. So,
Yeah.
AMGs and so forth.
Yeah, and you also have to consider technology on cars doesn't all come from a manufacturer. It comes from suppliers, it comes from other sources. So when you are trying to source this technology in however many years and you're trying to work on it, maybe there's something wrong with the screen or there's something wrong with the camera system. Are you going to try to fix it? One, two, who are you going to contact? And are they going to be able to walk you
Like,
through it?
does that vendor even still exist? Like, and have support for what they made 20 years ago or something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a very complicated thing to consider. And like you can kind of get away with it on older cars because there's less tech and there are fewer features and stuff like that. But when you buy a new supercar, most likely you're going to have a big camera system and a big sensor system built in on at least road going GTs. If you buy a track car, you're probably fine, right? You're not going to have all the beeps like, somebody's in the lane right there. But if you buy like a Grand Tour, there are probably going to be a lot of very complicated systems in it.
In general, moving ahead to just Audi a little more specifically and with what they're producing these days, like, what are your thoughts on their lineup lately? I mean, they're in kind of an interesting spot now with their EV rollout, and then also just when you look at the performance side of their brand, like they have kind of leaned into the RS sub brand a little bit more in recent years with the RS6 having success here in North America, but they're also in kind of this weird spot where there are gaps now because with the new A5 being sedan and Avant only, they have no coupes now, right? Like TT and the R8 have been gone for a bit. A5's not coming back. Meanwhile, BMW has three coupes. Mercedes has three coupes. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Like, do you think they're missing out a little bit, or do you think they're kind of sitting back and waiting to see what happens with these other brands?
So I think every manufacturer is kind of sitting back and waiting right now. And some manufacturers are going all in on electric stuff. Some manufacturers are just like, we're going to wait and see. And I think it really depends on your clientele and also how many examples are you selling? Are you just trying to look cool? Are you trying to move cars? What's the goal here? And yeah, you could say that there are gaps in the lineup right now. And I would agree. Yeah, there are gaps in the lineup. I mean, I look at a TT and an R8 and I'm like, heck yeah,
Mm.
those rock. But I do understand leaving the gap if you're not sure what the response will be, especially over the next like however many years, over the lifetime of a generation of car. You
Mhm.
know, you want to be able to commit to a car that can be relevant for a generation, whether that's 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, however long that generation will last. And I do think with old nameplates that have a lot of love behind them, you don't want to just come out with something that just fits regulations like a full EV R8, just like, oh, we're going to do an electric R8. Have fun,
Mhm. Mhm.
because you could really make a lot of people mad. And I do think at the end of the day, a lot of it is marketing. Like I keep saying that, but so much of it is marketing because how many R8s are you actually going to move?
Yeah.
Versus how many people are going to see R8s and go, that's cool. And you don't want to go all in on the wrong thing. And I do think it's also important to consider nameplates versus just introducing a new car entirely
Yeah.
and having people go, yeah, that's a cool car, instead of giving an old nameplate something new that is not what the fans of that nameplate want. I mean, that's kind of what we saw with the NSX. The NSX was amazing, but people were like, it's not a gas only manual from the 90s. Well, yeah, it's 2015,
Mhm.
But because they introduced it under the NSX name, people kind of freaked out and they didn't want to pay attention to it, and they missed out on a really cool car. So it is tough with nameplates like that are really, really popular and people love them to just like throw something out there because you could really mess it up.
Yeah. It's like the super complex, as I call it, right? Like, what is ultimately a great car, in my opinion,
Mhm.
but BMW logos all over under the hood,
Mhm.
BMW fit and finish, and people lose their minds, right? So,
Exactly. And it's a very good car. It's a very capable car. It's also, I think, a lot of people fail to understand the nuance of building an entirely new inline six versus just getting an inline six from someone else
yeah.
kept the cost of that car down. And a lot of people they want to conveniently ignore that because they're like, well, it's a BMW. Well, okay, whatever. It's a good car. And that ultimately keeps the price down because why is Toyota going to develop a new inline six? Why
Yeah.
are they going to do that?
Yeah.
For four of you to buy it? Okay.
Yeah, it's an interesting contrast to like when you think back, to like the 90s with so many of these brands, right? Like in the 90s, like how many distinct sports cars did Nissan sell? Like
Mhm.
outside of the luxury segment itself, they had if you look at globally, right? Skyline Z, Sylvia, like other smaller coupes of like the Sentra and stuff. And yeah, it's just such a different environment. I'm not envious of any of the automakers right now because even outside of what's happening in the regulatory environment in the US, like it is just such a different environment to try to play catch up with. Cause like to your point, they're working on these cars, the cars that are coming out now, a lot of EVs still obviously, and like things are changing. There's these tariffs being introduced, whatever. It's like, we don't know, people fail to recognize that like the development and the commitment to that car started like, I don't know, 6 years ago or something.
Yep.
Right. So it's like, it's like impossible. Like, how do you stay relevant in the segment that's not only going to be marketed well and received well by the consumers, but also like fit into the global economy and reg environment?
Exactly, exactly. Because yeah, the timeline for making a new car is about 7 years. And
Yeah.
so you have to consider what are the regulations going to be? How are people going to react? Do we want to put this on an existing nameplate? Do we want to potentially mess up a nameplate? Stuff like that. And those are tough questions.
Yeah. And we've seen a lot of those brands, including Audi, I feel like, not just on their lineup, but even just the marketing side of things, right? Like Audi has pivoted a lot in terms of like, they were going to do this whole odd even number thing, which never made
Mhm.
sense to me and sounds like it didn't make sense to a lot of people. And they kind of committed with the A5, basically the new A4. And then everyone's like, okay, now the new A6 is going to be the e-tron, the A7 is going to be the gas. And they're like, no, never mind, right? So it's like they're reacting on the fly to all these like marketing reactions to their model marketing. And I don't know. It's I can keep up with it as an auto enthusiast, of course, but to the average consumer, I feel like it just can only confuse and alienate you a little bit with the brand if like so much is changing beyond like the marketing of like, okay, like I just want the new A4. Like, what is that? Oh, it's EV now. Oh, wait, well, it's now called the A5. Actually, there's a plug. It's like, like on the consumer side, it just gets wild.
And consumers, at least America, at least around me, consumers react much better if you just call a car a name.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
yeah. I'm
cons-
alphanumerics.
a consumer can understand the difference between a Hyundai Palisade and a Hyundai Sonata. Can
Yep.
they understand the difference between a Q8 and an A3?
Yeah,
No,
I know.
no,
I've
they
long been a
can't.
proponent of like this whole alphanumeric trend that so many brands have either always had or start adopting. And it's like, look, at this point, like you might as well just market your cars as their chassis code because that's what you're
Yep,
doing. Like you're
that's what
marketing your
you're doing.
car as like your internal product development name. It's
Yeah,
like,
it,
like, and then even down to the trim names sometimes too, right? They have like 40, 50, 55, 60, whatever. It's like, yeah, it just gets insane.
and it's like, they didn't call a Supra a 2JZ, they called it a Supra.
Right.
Because if
And
they
that's,
called it a 2JC, everybody would be like, what's a 2JZ? What are
yeah,
you talking about?
right.
What is that? It's just people want to be able to see something in their head. And when you give them letters and numbers, they're like, "Mm, don't
Yeah.
know."
Yeah, and then they always back themselves into corners, right? Because we have the e-tron, the first electric SUV, and now oh wait, now there's a Q4 and a Q6 e-tron, and there was a Q8 e-tron, and it's like what's going on with all these e-trons? Like,
I had a Q8 e-tron like a year and a half ago or something like that, and we reviewed it for the YouTube channel. And the name was so long that I had to like, say it 20 times before I could say it on the video because it was an Audi Q8 Sportback e-tron S-Line Quattro Prestige and more. Like I'm not getting
yeah,
all of the words there. And sometimes my husband and I are sitting around if we like out of nowhere, he'll be like, Audi Q8 S-Line Sportback e-tron Quattro Prestige. What else was it? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't remember the other words. And it's like, why was it 15 words? Why was it 15 words?
yeah. Porsche's great at that too, right? Panamera, Sport Turismo, e-hybrid, Turbo S, Executive,
Mhm.
whatever.
What does that
But
mean?
yeah,
What does that mean? Help me out. Like that is what the normal buyer is saying. They're like, what does that mean? Help me out. And then you explain it and they're like, I still don't get it. Whatever. Okay. fine.
Yeah.
And it's just, it makes it hard.
Yeah, and half the times what I've seen is the dealer sales staff don't know much more than you either. They're just like trying to keep up, and someone off in Germany knows it at like the back of their hand, but then it doesn't translate on the market.
But I also find that, like, yeah, the learning curve is so high because when I go get warranty done, we have a Hyundai Elantra that we take to the airport. When I go get warranty work done on it, I'll go to the Hyundai dealership, drop it off, and then I'll wait in the waiting room, right? And every single time a salesperson comes out and they try to sell me a Kona, and I'm like, you got an Elantra in? And they're like, we have an we have this and this and this, and they don't really know what I'm talking about. I went in one time before the Elantra Inn existed, and I said, they tried to sell me a Kona again, and I was like, nah, I'm good. Do you have this? And they go, we have an Elantra Inn. And I was like, that doesn't exist, because at the time it didn't exist. It does now. It's a wonderful car. I love it. And I said, that doesn't exist. And they said, yeah, we have one outside. And I was like, that's an Elantra Inn line. And they were like, yeah, it's an inn.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
was like,
that's the classic
"Mm-mm-mm."
situation. Yeah,
It's like, no,
I
it
know.
is not.
Whenever someone I know is shopping for cars too, they're like, "Oh yeah, they have the 2025, RS, AMG, whatever," and I have to be like the spot checker, like, "Well, go back and ask what that car really is, or get a
Mhm.
picture because like that said car is either not out in this market yet, or just flat out doesn't exist." Thanks for tuning in to this episode of All Wheel Driven. If you're not yet a member of Audi Club North America, we invite you to join the largest community of Audi owners and enthusiasts in the world. By joining the club, you'll elevate your Audi owner experience with benefits that quickly pay for your membership, including up to 6% off MSRP on any Audis, new or leased, a quarterly print edition of our Quattro magazine delivered straight to your mailbox, exclusive events and educational opportunities like high performance driving programs, social gatherings, and international tours, premium discounts on top tuning brands like 034 Motorsport and Integrated Engineering, comprehensive insurance coverage and savings from Amica, Haggerty, and Lockton, plus many other benefits. Whether you're looking to sharpen your driving skills, save on trusted brands, or build connections through one of our 32 regional chapters, Audi Club offers all of this and more. Join us today at AudiClubNA.org and become part of a community driven by a shared passion for Audi. Yeah, I think about that too when I do, if outside of press events, I try to do any of those little like, ride and drive things that they have, usually around like an auto show or something. So like Chicago always does like an electric drive event out in the suburbs where you can just sample all the different EVs that are upcoming, right? So like you can get your hands on the Kia EV9 or something early, right? And Audi was there, so I drove the Q4 e-tron briefly. And I always like to just learn about the car beyond what I might already know while I'm driving it. And you have your marketing person or whatever in there who probably works for like some third party firm or whatever, and you ask them the questions, and like half of them they don't know, or they say something that's doesn't make sense, and I just kind of in my head know like, well, wait, no, that's not right. And I'm thinking the same
Mhm.
thing. I'm like, the end goal, like, I'm not there to buy a car, right? I'm just there to like selfishly check out cars. But like a lot of
Mhm.
people are there to potentially buy those cars and like put down deposits for their local dealer or something. And it's like, how are you supposed to really accomplish that goal if like your people aren't even really trained up, or they can't remember all the details?
And I do feel bad for, like, the people doing one-off events, right? Because, maybe they weren't given all the materials, maybe they weren't given a super quick maybe they were given a
Yeah.
super quick turnaround and they didn't have time to learn, stuff like that. Like, that can be hard, and it can be hard to be, like, on the spot trying to answer questions, and you're like, "Oh, no, I don't really know the answer." But don't try to sell me something
Right.
unless you can tell me what you're selling me.
Right.
Don't try to sell me something, because we're gonna end up. I'm bored. My car is in for warranty work. I got hours here. We can talk.
Yeah.
And something that I also find that, like, again, just backs up, you don't really need to know about the cars that you're showing off or selling, is most normal people have decided that they want a car, whether with however much information or however little information. They're like, I want that car, and they're not coming to you for help or information. They're coming to you for validation.
Validation, yeah.
And this is one of the most helpful things I have learned as the, like, resident car enthusiast, because it's like, if you're the resident doctor, people are going to be like, hey, my stomach hurts, can you tell me what's going on? If you're the resident car enthusiast, people are going to go, hey, what car should I buy? I go, what car do you want?
Yeah,
And then
right.
they go, I want a Kia Telluride. And I'm like, that's a great car. And that's it. That's the
Yeah.
end of the conversation.
They're like, "Oh, Alanis is a car enthusiast. She said it's great. I'm sold. Done."
And I'm not lying. Like, if they told me that they wanted a truly awful car, I'd be like, okay, I would. maybe not, but
Yeah.
like if they tell me they want a car that is decent and livable or really good, I'll just go, "Mhm, that's great pick.
Yeah.
Have fun." Because they're not coming to me for suggestions and lists. They are coming to me for validation. And that was one of the most helpful time-saving tips I ever learned or taught myself is they want validation.
Yeah. No, I've definitely fallen into that trap a little bit myself in the past with friends because it's like, it's always exciting. Like, oh, my friend wants to buy a car. Like, here we go. And then,
Nope.
they're looking at
Ask
cars.
us
They're,
for
they're
help.
actually going to dealers and shopping around, but it's like Mazda CX-5 was the first thing they brought up. Great car.
Mhm.
I gave them all this other feedback about the other cars they were thinking about or looking at, and in the end, they bought the CX-5. I'm like, I guess all I needed to tell you was like the CX-5 is a good car. Go with that if your gut says to. It's
Exactly.
like end of discussion.
That's the script. "Hey, I'm looking for a new car. What do you suggest? What do you like?"
Yeah,
"I
yeah,
like a CX-5." "Great. Get a CX-5." And that's it.
yeah,
It's so easy. It saves me so much time.
yeah. Oh man, it's funny. Well, on that note, what is your current garage situation, and what are your plans with your garage? You've got the Miatas, I know, so the pair of Miatas.
Yes,
What else
I
is going
do.
on?
So I have 2 Mazda Speed Miatas, one is gray, one is red. Our red Mazda Speed Miata is about 5 different colors of red, and that's because we bought it used in 2020, so at the time it was about 16 years old, and it was sitting outside, so it had all kinds of sun damage, it was really, really ugly, and so we repainted the panels with sun damage, and when we repainted those, we realized that some of the other panels had been repainted, and then they didn't match, because obviously your sun panels are gonna be the ones that are, like, directly on top of the car, so then we realized that one side of the car was a different color from the other side, but we couldn't tell because the middle panels had some damage. So it's about 5 colors of red. And I saw a pristine, like museum kept red Mazda Speed the other day, well, the other month when I was with Mazda because they brought it out to Daytona. And I was like, that's what the
That's what
red
your
is
color was
supposed
supposed
to
to look
look
like.
like. Yeah, literally, I was like, that's what it's supposed to look like. And mine doesn't look like that at all. But I love it. It's got all kinds of aftermarket stuff on it. And like, it's got the blow off valve. It makes all the noises and everything like that. And then we have a pristine gray Mazda Speed Miata. Both are 2004s, and it has about 24,000 miles on it. There's not a single bit out of place on it. It's a beautiful car. Everything is intact. It's absolutely amazing. And so we got to partner with our YouTube channel, Expel. Expel does paint protection film and all kinds of other stuff. And Expel was like, we're going to do a fully custom job on your Mazda Speed. We're going to cover it in PPF. And they did full PPF and ceramic coating on that gray Mazda Speed. And so not only is it perfect, but it's also fully PPF'd and ceramic coated. And it just makes me so happy to see it
That
because I'm
might
like
be
that.
like the only Mazda Speed that's been fully PPF'd.
Yeah, no, I think I actually think, at least in terms of gray Mazda speeds, it has to be the most perfect gray Mazda speed in existence. Perhaps it's one of the most perfect Mazda speeds in existence, because there was only one set of them, 2004, 2005, that era. It's definitely one of the most perfect ones. And in terms of gray ones, they're so small and they're the same color as the road, so they get wrecked all the time. So there aren't even a lot of those left. So it's definitely the most perfect gray one. It's a stunning vehicle. I absolutely love it. Our third car is our airport car. It is just a normal Hyundai Elantra with a bunch of warranty work done on it. um, and actually, I had a really expensive press car the other day, and we put it in the garage, and there was hail around, and all the hail chances went away at about 10 p.m. So we went to sleep. And at 3 a.m., I woke up to this horrid sound on the roof. And for the first time in 15 years of owning that Elantra, got hit by hail because we had to leave it outside.
Mm.
So I was really, really, really distraught because the car doesn't mean that much to me. It's a utility car, but it had been garage kept for 15 years. And that was the one
Mm.
night it was
Damn
outside.
press
And,
car.
and we're looking at the price to get it fixed. And the price to get it fixed is pretty much more than the price of the
Yeah,
car.
I mean, it's like gotta be all over, right? Like trunk, roof, everything.
It's all over. It's all over.
Yeah.
I ran outside at 3 o'clock in the morning because I was in bed. I ran outside at 3 o'clock in the morning. I started throwing stuff on the car because it had never been outside in the hail. It had always been inside. And again, the hail chances were gone. It was a random, unexpected storm at 3 a.m. It just ruined everyone's cars in town. And I was throwing stuff on the car, and it's covered and it's really, really sad.
Mm,
So that is our current garage. I love the Mazda Speeds. I love the Elantra more than I thought I did. But yeah, that's what we currently have.
nice, nice. Well, what are your latest press cars? What have you been driving?
Let's see, what else have I driven recently? ND3 Miata, I love that car. That's amazing. I'm driving a Ford Maverick and Bronco Sport this week, and then I'm gonna drive a manual Jetta. Love that. Yeah, I've got like there's just a lot going
Healthy
on. I've
rotation. Yeah.
yeah, I've got the rotation going. The Elantra in drove the Elantra in on track recently. It yeah, it's been good. It's been going
Nice.
along. I'm doing all this stuff for my YouTube channel. I left my full time job a couple of months ago. And so it's been really cool to get invited to these events and get all of these press cars while working for my own YouTube channel because it can
Hmm.
be really hard to prove yourself in an industry like this. And so, to be able to drive a McLaren 750S for my YouTube channel, really, really cool. And that was
Yeah.
really exciting. So stuff like that it's been really cool.
Yeah. No, your channel's been doing great. It's awesome to see you getting some cool cars. Like
Thank you.
the
I
Revuelto we
appreciate it.
talked about, and I think
Mhm.
what other have you had other Audis? I think you had an RS7 at some point too, right?
Yeah, so I had an RS7, oh gosh, like 2 years ago at this point, I think. I had the Q8 e-tron. It just really depends on what's in the state at the time. Texas is one of those places where it's the middle ground, so the fleets here for press aren't fully stocked all the time. You kind of have to catch cars on rotation.
Hmm. Yeah. Cool. All right. I think we can start heading towards one of my closing segments here, which is the Dream Garage. So I just wanted to
Ooh.
get your thoughts on. I guess we usually do three, right? So like keep it to like
Yeah.
if you had to build a dream car garage of three vehicles, and one of them can be a Miata if you choose. But wondering what those cars would be, and if any of them would be an Audi.
So here's my question. This is going to be like a dream garage for my household, right? So this is me and my husband. This is our household.
Yeah. I mean, no hard and fast rules here. It can be as unrealistic as you want, or as practical as you want.
Okay, so I'm going to go practical because I'm a very practical person. So this is our household. And so that would mean it is a mixture between my husband and I.
Hmm.
So my car, well, and his car, this is going to be both of us. A 992 Porsche 911 GT3 in Viola purple metallic.
Ooh.
Um Interior accents and seatbelts likely racing yellow, 6-speed manual. And then we're going to have our other shared car, which is definitely going to be some form of Miata. Unlimited budget, probably an ND3. But we love our Mazda speeds. So, and then our third car would be his car, which would be a Datsun 240Z.
Ah, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Yeah,
Practical.
I remember you talking about what is it, Viola Purple Metallic, right?
Viola
Is that the
purple
official color?
metallic.
I remember you talking about that in a podcast or a YouTube video one time, and I was like, yes, like someone else appreciates it. I see them occasionally at like a Porsche car show, and I'm like, this color is just amazing. Like it's
Amazing.
so cool.
I had I had an argument with a car designer a couple months ago about Viola Purple Metallic. Um, he I asked for a car in Viola Purple Metallic. I was like, "Can you just make like something near Viola Purple Metallic?" And he said that color is childish. And I was like,
Ooh, triggered.
and we argued for a long time. But like we were having fun, it was like a fun argument. But he told me it was childish. And I was like, oh, how dare you tell me that was childish? And so, yeah, honestly, I do think at some point in my life, it would be really cool to have a first gen Audi R8 with the gated manual. I do really, really love the gated manual. I've never driven it, but I think everybody kind of wants a gated manual at some point in their lives. And I do wish the second gen had a gated manual because it's such a beautiful design.
Hmm.
But I would see myself if I had unlimited money at some point, at least trying it out because it's a really cool car.
Yeah, agreed. I definitely want an R8 in my life at some point, and I have the same complex of like they're both so timeless designs in my opinion. Like everyone
I
thinks
agree.
of the first gen, which is of course the only time you could get that manual. But I think by the end of the life cycle, 23, I think was the last model year, they looked incredible.
Incredible.
There was like a little bit of a period in the I think the early second gen when it first came out in 16. It looked like there were parts of the
Hmm.
design that I didn't love, but then they refined it gradually until it went out. And by that
Stunning.
last model year, I was like, damn, like this is like the perfect R8. And of course, it's like fully, modernized compared to the original one too. So Yeah, I don't know which I would do. I mean, if given the choice, I'd probably pick the newer one. But yeah, the earlier V10s with the manual, I mean, that's just such a
Mhm.
special experience.
The newer one, the design is so beautiful that if there were a manual on it, I would take it,
Yeah,
but
100%.
just I gotta go gated manual.
All right. Anything you want to plug before you jump? Appreciate you coming on again.
I would say what I plug mostly right now is my YouTube channel. Obviously, I'm on all social media. I'm Alanis N King, not Alanis King, because in 2009, a man named Alan, who was very fond of himself, took my name on every single platform because it is
Alan is
Alan is
king.
King. He also took my email. So I'm sure there are so many people who have emailed alanisking@gmail.com with probably wonderful things to say and offers and things like that.
Yeah.
And I never responded. And they're like,
I
what a
bet
jerk.
Alan regrets that decision now.
Alan doesn't respond to me either. I email him and I'm like, hey, Alan, can I have the email? And he's like, no. And well, he doesn't say no. He just doesn't respond. I hope he's alive. I hope he's out there. I hope you're doing well, Alan. But email me back. He gets all of my like HR emails. HR will always email him because
Oh,
I'm like,
no.
it's Alanis N King. And then they'll send Alan like my 401k and my social security number. And I'm like, Alan, you cannot have all of this information about me. So Alanis and King on everything. Except for YouTube, I'm Alan is King. I don't even say my name. I say Alan is. And so I'm on YouTube. I upload every single week. It's just me and my husband. So I do all the scripting. He does the filming and editing. I think the productions are really, really, really good for a 2-person operation. I'm really proud of them. I'm on there uploading weekly. I'm on all social media. I just post random stuff all the time, usually about cars and motorsports, sometimes about Yu-Gi-Oh. Yeah, that's me. I wrote a book called Racing with Rich Energy, How a Rogue Sponsor Took Formula One for a Ride. Yeah, I think it's a really cool book. It's basically in 2018, 2019, this sponsor came in and sponsored the Haas Formula One team, and everything quickly imploded. And it was absolutely wild. So the book goes through how that happened and also a lot of historic racing sponsorships. One of my favorite is the Moneytron machine. It was like the 80s. It was a supercomputer that could predict the stock market that didn't actually exist and no one ever saw it. And this guy tricked a bunch of people out of a bunch of money and went Formula One racing. And that is the dream, isn't it?
Yeah. Gotta love some motorsports drama.
So tons of drama in that book.
Makes you wonder what you haven't heard.
Yeah, tons of drama in that book. You can get it on a lot of Amazon sites. You can also get it from the publisher, McFarland. If you're confused on where to get it on your territory, we have a website that says what to do based on your territory in the world. So you can just go to richenergybook.com and figure it out. And yeah, I really like that book. So any of those things that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, be sure to go check it out, everybody listening and watching.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you to everyone for listening to another episode of All Wheel Driven.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of All Wheel Driven. Please consider giving our show a rating, subscribe for future episodes, and email us your feedback at media@audiclubna.org. Be sure to check the show description for a link to submit your questions or express interest in joining future episodes of All Wheel Driven to share your Audi story with our community. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.